I have a few news stories to tell you about. The first one is Bishop Peter Christensen of Boise, Idaho, banned the Ad Orientem Mass. He also banned the use of communion rails. Church Militant reported this story, and so I clicked on the link of the diocesan newspaper. And I scrolled down to where the article was listed on page 6, and I just want to read you a few clips from here. The bishop lists several points. Point number 1, it says, priests must take special care in forming the faithful. In general, priests are to refrain from providing the faithful with incorrect information in order to promote a particular approach to worship. Clergy are to refer always to the general instruction of the Roman Missal, the order of the Mass, and other officially promulgated ritual books for the form of liturgy they are celebrating. And point number 2 says, priests in the Diocese of Boise will face the people when presiding at the ordinary form of Mass. This contradicts his instructions for point number 1, as the general instructions of the Roman Missal on the Vatican website seem to indicate ad orientem is the preferred posture for the priests. I will link the general instructions from the Roman Missal down below for your reference. A number of times in this document it says that the priest facing the people will say this statement. What it implies is that the priest is not already facing the people. Why would it instruct the priest to turn and face the people if the priest is already facing the people? I have not yet heard a good argument in favor of banning ad orientem Mass. Most of the people say, oh, well, I like the priest facing me. Okay, so the opposite crowd is going to say the same thing. Then we need to look at objective criteria. Ad orientem liturgy is objectively better. The priest turns towards the people whenever he's addressing the people, and he turns towards God when he's addressing God. The bishop goes on to state, there are priests who prefer ad orientem. I am convinced that they mean well and find it a devout way to pray. But the overwhelming experience worldwide after Vatican II is that the priest faces the people for the Mass, and this has contributed to the sanctification of the people. Really? What about Mass attendance after Vatican II? I wonder what the bishop would have to say to that. How many Catholics believe in the real presence of the Eucharist now as opposed to before Vatican II? In point number 3, he says, posture at communion and the use of kneeling bench or altar rails. I have directed that the posture for receiving communion in this diocese is standing. Now, he doesn't actually prevent lay people from kneeling to receive the Eucharist, but he does say, well, it is the right of the faithful to kneel and receive, nor may any communicant be denied communion based on posture. Given that the established norm in this country is standing, I am instructing that the priests do not use furniture or items such as prie Deus or communion rails, as these may seem to undermine the norm or imply a preference for kneeling to receive. Under number 4, the bishop says, for the celebration of the extraordinary form under Pope Benedict's Summorum Pontificum, it became permissible for priests to celebrate the extraordinary form of the Eucharist without applying for permission to their local ordinary. I am requesting, however, that as a matter of courtesy, I am made aware of any such celebrations. The bishop further goes on to say, so, for accurate record keeping, I request that you report this practice to me along with the frequency and attendance. So here's a perfect example of a corrupt bishop. By acknowledging this openly in his diocesan newspaper, he has also acknowledged that he is part of the problem in the church today. It appears also that this bishop, by requiring priests to report attendance of the Latin Mass, he wants to monitor it and make sure it doesn't become a larger thing. This article was published after the bishop had already banned public masses in his diocese. I think what's happening is he's getting concerned that a lot of these priests are privately praying the Latin Mass, and he wants to definitely put a stranglehold on it to effectively control traditional priests. These are the personal assaults that traditional priests face on a daily basis. By just trying to promote Catholicism, these corrupt bishops are trying to stomp it out, and it's disgusting and embarrassing. Right next to this article in the diocesan newspaper, the bishop, I guess, decided to post a letter from one of his priests. It's a very short letter, and it's titled, Priest Appreciates Clarification from Bishop Peter. Dear Bishop Peter, thanks so much for your recent memo to all the priests regarding liturgical expectations and clarifications. It was a surprise to receive it, but a welcome one for many priests. Positive emails are circulating, and I think many priests appreciate the quality of the memo, as it assists all of us to look at our own liturgical styles and practices. Reading the memo reminded me that I need to make a few changes to the things that have crept in over the years. I know it was probably a hard memo to write, and I'm sure some priests will take issue with what you are asking. Yeah, because it's a complete disgrace to anyone who calls themselves Catholic. However, so many of us joyfully celebrate with the spirit of Vatican II, and people really do participate. Well, the people that show up to Mass do participate. Unity, stability, and most of all, trust can and will continue to make our church in Idaho a sign to all that the Spirit is alive. Jesus is present, and God the Father watches, guards, and guides us all. Interesting that he would mention unity. It appears the greatest sin under the Francis Church is division. Unity for the sake of unity only leads to watered-down theology and in some cases heresy. True Catholic unity exists in the deposit of faith. If there is divisions from Catholicism, from the deposit of faith, that is a great sin, and that is the sin of apostasy. This false unity and dialoguing with other people and never criticizing anyone is ridiculous, and it's impossible. And bishops like this corrupt Bishop of Idaho are part of the problem. On March 31st, 2020, an earthquake struck near Boise, Idaho that was 6.5 on the Richter scale. That's a very interesting coincidence, considering the bishop's actions. Moving on to some different news, Diane Montagna, a reporter for Lifesite News, has resigned. In her tweet, she said that she resigned because of differences of editorial approach and to pursue other challenges. If she just said she was leaving to do something else, and that wouldn't be a big deal, but it's interesting that she notes over differences of editorial approach. Now, I think Lifesite News has broken a lot of good stories, and, got to give them credit for that and for sticking up for the Catholic faith. But this raises some interesting questions, and there's not questions that I can answer. Now, for John the Son of Thunder, I don't have a personal agenda. I'm just trying to report information as I see it. And maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not, but I'm not actually making any money off of this. Now, I understand that there are a lot of heretical Catholic news organizations out there, like the Jesuit-run organizations, and there are also some Catholic news outlets that kind of like to report news, but they're timid to report any of the big stuff until someone else reports it, like Church Militant or Lifesite. But I don't think organizations like Church Militant and Lifesite are above criticism whenever the need may occur. So this is just something to keep in mind, see what Diane Montagna does, where she goes. But I'm just a random Catholic dude who reads the news just like all the other traditional Catholics, and I'm able to make my own decisions based on a variety of sources, and so are you. Don't let this stuff slip past you. When corrupt bishops make statements like this, a lot of times they sneak it through. This just so happens there's a dead point in the church, and it's not easily picked up by a lot of people because not a lot of people read through their diocesan newspapers. But I would encourage you to keep track of what's being said in your diocesan newspapers. That's a big deal. It's only going to become a bigger deal because bishops might try to sneak stuff through. So comment below and let me know your thoughts.